It has already started with the NBA season right on the horizon and expectations building across the league. The Sixers are dealing with another slew of injuries at training camp. Doing to highlight the latest news on what we know for each key figure of the Sixers team, as well as the anonymous GM survey has made its way around and expectations are fully being set for this season. I'm doing a dive into where the Sixers fell into a couple of these questions here and everything else that is pressing with the Sixers team. So to get right into things, do want to start off with the latest news that has popped across the Sixers world, which is that VJ Edgecombe did not practice today with a hip issue. Sixers say we'll learn about his status tomorrow. Now, to interject here, we won't go crazy until we have an idea of what the specific injury is. This could be nothing more than soreness that he misses a day, and it's picking up right where he left off tomorrow. But obviously, when it is the Sixers, when we know the history that has gone down with this franchise, this does bring a little bit of panic bells. I think the honest assessment or my feel for things is that the Sixers are trying very hard to be overly cautious for training camp, but that also does sort of dilute the meaning of what these injuries are. Now, speaking of a guy who has dealt with this on both sides of the equation here, that would be Paul George. And the latest update that we do have is that Nick Nurse said Paul George is progressing, and they did some of the team's early portions of practice today, which is new. Not 5-on-5, but some 5-on-0. Nurse said he hasn't ruled out George for the remainder of the preseason yet, which to me is an incredibly positive sign. That right there means that he is in play for potentially starting game one of the regular season, which would be a big deal for this Sixers team. Obviously, they've been way more, I guess, veiled and, not as clear cut with the Joel Embiid outlook, but it is nice that we're getting, I would say, normal updates with Paul George and the timeline for his recovery. So it is going to be an injury question mark for this season. That is always going to be the case when it does pertain to the Philadelphia 76ers, but at least a step in the right direction as it goes with Paul George. Now, when speaking about the overall outlook for the Sixers team, I think this question summed it up the best in the anonymous GM surgery, as the question is which team's level of success this season is toughest to predict, and no surprise there, the Philadelphia 76ers dominating the voting with 47% in first place, 7% pretty much across the board for tied for second, with teams like the Dallas Mavericks, the Warriors, the Rockets, Clippers, Lakers, Grizzlies, and Pelicans there. But I do think these Sixers are the obvious answer. There is a world where everything breaks correctly this year, and we're talking about the Sixers team as a legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference. That has more to do with the lack of talent surrounding them than the Sixers directly. If these Sixers were a Western Conference team, I think we would have to be prepping for this team has no chance at a postseason run. But that is not the case. They are in the East where the race is wide open. And of course, they got to figure out what horses they have behind them still. There also is a world where things are an absolute nightmare this season. Both options are on the table, which is why I think this assessment does sort of fit. Now, I'm a little bit more optimistic than most, I would say, for the outlook of this Sixers team. I will continue to bang the table and say I do believe this is going to be a playoff team this season. I do believe that they're going to exceed expectations in a lot of ways. And one of the things that I'm kind of grateful for from a Sixers perspective is the lack of expectations. That for years we've talked about these second round jokes. Keep them coming. That this team has not built the sustainable contender that the process did desire. But I kind of think this is a welcome change, that there are not these newfound expectations. That for these past couple years, it did not matter what the Sixers did in the regular season. It's wake me up when the playoffs start. That's kind of not the case this year, that they have to earn it, that there has to be a little bit of belief within themselves and finding a way that maybe I think there could be a different outcome for this franchise with a team that is not as tied to we have to get over the championship hump. We have to make sure we get past the second round. Now, this is not me saying that those things are not important, because obviously those are still the main goals here. But I do think a little bit of a reset on what the expectations are kind of could be beneficial to everybody here. Now, a couple other questions that I did want to pull up in the anonymous survey of speaking of the injured VJ Edgecombe, in the who will win rookie of the year across rookies and international players here. No surprise, the Cooper flag dominating things at 97% there. But VJ Edgecombe, the only other player that did receive a vote with 3% there. Now, these do not mean anything, as Reed Sheppard was obviously the winner of this last year and pretty much didn't play at all for the Rockets. He is going to be called on to play a pretty major role this year following the injury to Fred VanVleet, and I like Reed Sheppard as a player. Liked him at Kentucky and watched a lot of his tape, going back and watching our guy Justin Edwards, who was his teammate there. I am still net positive on Reed Sheppard, but obviously things did not break his way last year. I also will be maybe a bit of a contrarian here. I don't think Cooper Flag is going to win Rookie of the Year. I just don't. That I think that is a team that is built to contend right now. And when you factor in what the qualifications for winning Rookie of the Year, the numbers have a lot to do with it. I don't really see the pathway to Cooper Flag getting up the same level of shot volume as some of these other candidates around. I know he's become a very anti-Philadelphia guy, but Ace Bailey's a guy I look at as has a strong chance at winning that Rookie of the Year. Less about his talent directly and more about the opportunity that he has in front of him. He's going to be granted the freedom to get up however many shots that he does see. That's not going to be the case with Cooper Flag in Dallas, where there are expectations and certainly pressure following the decision to make that Luka Doncic trade last year. So did think that was worth noting. Now, the other question from that GM survey that I did want to pull up here is which team will be the most improved in 25-26. I think it is a fair answer that the Orlando Magic come in at number one at 47%, the Atlanta Hawks at tied for second with the Spurs for 20% there. Both also, I think, very fair answers. And then the Philadelphia 76ers coming in at fourth at 10%. This is a team that, and by the way, another one that does not mean anything is you can see that last year's vote, Memphis Grizzlies, who had a very disastrous season themselves. So the track record for these anonymous GMs, not particularly strong, but obviously guys that are in the know, and I think is worth at least hearing where the general pulse of the league is. So I do kind of like that there is a little bit of optimism. That is my general sense of things as well, is when you zoom out of the Philadelphia region, of the Philadelphia media market, of the Philadelphia fan base directly, I think the wider scale, there's more optimism for this Sixers team than it feels like on the interior, on the internals, on the, the front lines of the fandom standpoint of the city there. So I think in the wider scale, there is more belief around the Sixers than there is within the fan base, which I'm not sure exactly what that says there. Now, one last update that I did want to pull up. This has been a guy that I've been pretty net negative on since that he was drafted by the Sixers with the 35th overall pick in this year's draft, and that will be Johni Broome here. We got this update coming from Keith Pompey that I did think was interesting, as he tweets out that Johni Broome has shed around 10 pounds to a playing weight of 243 pounds since the NBA draft. Now, my critique of Johni Broome coming out of the draft, it is nothing to do with him directly here. I just would have utilized that pick in a different direction, that I think taking a swing at a guy that could potentially be a backup center, he could grow into that, is just not the best usage of the 35th overall pick there. And also, if I'm talking about Broome directly, I just don't see the NBA role. He's a good kid. He's going to give you everything that he's got. He's got some legitimate pedigree, had a ton of success at Auburn, started at Morehead State before that, a guy who was a transfer in and really delivered with the bright lights. He's got some dog in him. He's got some competitive fire. He's going to try. He's going to compete. He's going to give you everything. That just doesn't quite make up for the lack of athleticism that I do see in his game, the lack of mobility. Maybe this lost weight will help, and I admire that he is making a clear, conscious effort to reach these sort of metrics here. I think even looking at him in Summer League, he looked notably slimmer to me than he did during his days at Auburn there. He's got some skills as a basketball player. He's just sort of a throwback style of player. He's got some post orientation. A good playmaker for his size there. There are some interesting things that could be done. Just would not have been the direction that I went with that overall selection there. But nonetheless, we'll be rooting for Johni Broome and love that he is putting the work in, getting his body right for the grind of an NBA season. And that season is coming mighty quickly. So October 22nd will be the opening day for this Philadelphia 76ers team, opening things up against the Boston Celtics, who of course have been hit by their slew of injuries in their own right. Jason Tatum will not be there, although he is progressing at a wild rate. Saw a video of him dunking today, which is just insanity, considering how long ago, or how not long ago, I guess I should say, that Achilles tear was sustained. So we'll see what happens with this Sixers team. We'll see what happens. The VJ Edgecombe would probably be the most notable storyline that I would say is worth noting. For the time being, we're going to table this, put this to the side, and think it's nothing more than precautionary, but we could be back with a little bit more of a concerning update tomorrow if that is the case there. Let's obviously recognize that Jared McCain set to start the season on the sideline, at least for a couple games here. We know the injuries to Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. I just don't want any more names added to that laundry list, and do hope that is a short-term thing. But nonetheless, my general sense from this video, I do think there's a more positive vibe about this Sixers team in the widespread national media than with Philadelphia directly, and can't exactly put my finger on what exactly that means. So we'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that in the comments. Have we just been burned by the Sixers team too many times? Is it a little bit of fatigue of, how in our face or constantly that they've been almost there, not quite getting over? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that below. But appreciate you guys for tuning into this video as always. We're going to be rocking from start to finish right here on Sixers Digest this season once again. The best way to be keeping up is by hitting that subscribe button below, dropping a like on this video, giving your thoughts in the comments. We'll be back talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.